there's a lot going on, man. The NFL seriously is becoming the NBA, and that is a good thing.
I love it.
In terms of news and rumors. How much of it is legitimate? How much isn't? I don't know. This one, I don't necessarily buy at all. But legitimacy to the Russell Wilson rumors, we've seen this pour out across social media over the last few days that Russ wants more protection. He's been sacked a lot, of course. Then he even commented on it earlier today, basically acknowledging like, hey, give me a say in this. I want some say. So can you even speculate, Marcus, where he could go? Or do we just stop that there and say this is going to, he made his point and that's that?
Yeah, I don't think he's going anywhere, but I think he is pulling one of these power plays like, hey, Seattle ownership, if you don't protect me this year, I could start to do the Deshaun Watson thing and potentially leave. So I think he's setting the groundwork for potentially an exit down the road, but it's not happening this year. There's just no way. They're still in a championship window. I think he still wants to be in Seattle. I think that team is set up well for him, but they've got to fix the offensive line. They've got to be more creative on offense. And if things don't change, I think 2022 is when we start potentially talking about Russ leaving, but not this season.
I got to be honest, as a Russell Wilson fantasy owner, they've surrounded him. The offensive line could be better, but they've put some talent around him. Like Russ did not play well the second half of the year.
Correct.
Like, so while I understand Deshaun Watson's angst, this one is a little bit strange to me. Yes, the offensive line needs it. It's followed him wherever. It could be better. They weren't horrific this year. It's not like it was a couple of years ago, at least in my opinion.
Sure, I agree.
I do think this one feels a little bit different. They're not going to trade him. He's trying to inject himself. No. What I am curious though, if you think this, Marcus, because this is how it went in the NBA. Someone made a demand, those demands were met, and all of a sudden you've got superstar pairing. So like Deshaun Watson's situation kind of feels like a moment. What the Texans do, ultimately time will tell. They don't want to listen to deals, but we'll see. But with him, like, does it feel like that's going to open up doors where we're having more of these types of conversations?
Yeah, we are officially in the player empowerment era in the NFL. And I love it. I think it's great for the sport to get this much turnover and this much change. It makes the offseason a ton of fun. I think this is a special circumstance, though, Adam, because he just signed a long-term deal last offseason, right? So to move out in 1 year requires some pretty bad things to happen. And obviously the DeAndre Hopkins thing, which happened before the extension, let's make sure that's clear. But Bill O'Brien tanking that team, Jack Esterby rising up to power in a Game of Thrones-like fashion. And then you've got Carl McNair, who Deshaun Watson has never seen eye to eye with, the Texans owner. It's just a really bad situation. There's really no future there with no first round picks over the next couple of years. I don't think we're going to see franchise quarterbacks moving around in their peaks and in their primes like this all that often. But if one domino like this happens, you never know.
Just be careful what you wish for, man. Like you're going to go to the Jets.
You could end up in the Texans.
Yeah, exactly. True. I mean, that's the other thing is like in his situation, the grass probably wouldn't be greener. But
and here's the other thing, Adam, where Watson's different than some of these other quarterbacks is he's one of the few in the entire league that has a no trade clause. So it's not like the Texans can say, hey, Deshaun, we're going to trade you to such and such bad team and you're going to have to live with it. He can say, no, I'm good. I'll just sit out. And it's different.
It is different. I'll take either of them on the Jets, by the way. If you were curious, I wanted to make sure to get that out there. All right. Speaking of actually a guy would take on the Jets, Patrick Peterson. Marcus, give me three places that he could end up. I mean, I've just been enamored with this guy, his talent for a long, long time. And I know you have as well. So realistically, where do you think he's playing come next fall?
I think the Raiders are the most logical spot, but I'm going to be curious to see what his market is because I'm not sure, Adam, that he's a full-time cornerback anymore. One of the things that made him special was elite athleticism, and I think that's deteriorated a little bit over the last couple of years. I'm curious to see if teams view him maybe as a safety now. He's got this big body. Maybe he's going to be the next Charles Woodson, this corner that transitions to safety, play a little bit of free, a little bit of strong. And if that's the case, I could see a bunch of teams being interested in him, including the New England Patriots, maybe the Buffalo Bills. But I think ultimately he's going to end up with the Raiders.
What do you think a cost for somebody like that is, right? I mean, that's probably a little bit harder And I feel like that's all out of whack right now because the quarterback frenzy that's going on, like our
Yeah.
calculators are breaking. So what it would be a legitimate asking, to praise for a guy like that.
Yeah, so the salary cap dropping to likely 181 million is going to affect this as well. And I think you're going to have to pay a little bit of a legacy price here because he's an 8-time Pro Bowl cornerback. So I'm thinking like a 1-year deal worth 8 to 10 million. Maybe it's a 2-year deal worth 21, 22, to stretch that cost out a little bit, but around $10 million per year.
All right. From a veteran cornerback to the quarterback that is really kind of stealing the news cycle, at least unless Russ interjects even more. Carson Wentz. I'm just saying, before the pod came on, you talked a little bit about having some tidbits here, some morsels. So Why don't you start with that? And then let's talk landing spots for Carson Wentz, because the leaks on this are absolutely amazing and hysterical.
Yeah. So, I mean, Nick Sirianni, the new Eagles head coach, was of the belief that when he took that job, he was going to be coaching Carson Wentz. And over the last week, things have changed. And it seems very likely that the Eagles are going to be moving him. The Philadelphia organization has either done a great or terrible job of trying to drum up interest in the media. We've seen, was it Saturday night? There was just every beat reporter was out there saying that, the Eagles might get 2 first-round picks for Carson Wentz. That's not the case. I think they're looking for anybody to take on his salary. And if they can get a first-round pick, that would be great. I do think ultimately he's going to end up in Indianapolis, maybe for a second-round pick. The Bears are obviously in this. So are the 49ers. It's a team to keep an eye on. But I think ultimately the Colts are going to land Carson Wentz.
So people know, right? When you're seeing this stuff reported, as strangely as it is, this is by design. This information that's getting out, your favorite local reporter isn't scooptacular in nature. Okay. He, in a lot of these instances, she is being handed a scoop that they're told to put out there in order to generate interest. Just so you know, because this one in particular has been wild to wrap your arms around, has it not? In terms of Tariq Cohen and monster deal. I mean, some of the superlatives that have been talked about this are hilarious, especially for a guy with a monster contract like this. You're seeing who's taking the bait. It's all I'm saying, right? Like you could tell.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's the Eagles are trying to create a market. They're trying to create a trade frenzy because teams haven't been calling, and they want teams to call, and they're trying to figure out a way to get Wentz off their books. And here's the thing, Adam, they know they have to do it sooner rather than later, because on March 5th, the 5th day of the new league year, his contract is guaranteed for the entire 2021 season. So they're trying to get this deal done as quick as possible so they can get into the quarterback market, whether it's trading up in the draft, whether it's going out and trying to get a Deshaun Watson or maybe a Kirk Cousins or Jimmy Garoppolo. They're trying to get this done as soon as possible so they can move on and get to their next quarterback.
Right, so Indy, Chicago, San Fran. San Fran would be the best place for him. Correct. I still think Chicago is going to be in there. I don't know, but you like Indy, so we'll see what happens. But San Fran, I think, if you're Carson, that's where you want to be, obviously.
Is that an upgrade though for the 49ers? Because I don't get it. I would rather just hold on to Garoppolo at that point.
I would agree. Yeah, I'm not necessarily advocating. I think in terms of Carson specifically, that would give you the best chance to reclaim whatever ability you have in there. So no, I'm not. If I'm San Fran, I'm going to look at the draft. I'm going to look at other options than this deal. Sure. Kirk Cousins, you mentioned him briefly. Latest on him, and what are some landing spots for Kirk? I don't know if there's a quarterback, Marcus, that whose value changes week to week, drop back more than this, right? So, but that being said, if he got in the right spot, not that he's been in a bad spot, I think it would be interesting to see what you get. It's not quite Stafford in this situation, but I think it could be like that. So what are 3 spots that ultimately he could go to?
Yeah, I think obviously Minnesota is the most likely. Him just staying there. He's got 2 really good receivers. He's played well over the last couple of years. I feel like it's very unlikely that he gets out of Minnesota. But if he does, the one spot that does make a lot of sense is the 49ers. Put him with Kyle Shanahan in a play action, RPO, zone stretch offense. I think he could be fantastic there. And then if you really, really want to get wild
Yes,
and you're looking for a spot, Miami's interesting because you could put him there, and I think it gives you at least a baseline of quarterback play. They would need to change their offensive up a little bit. They've got the cap space and the resources to do that. If they just want the game manager type and the lean on their defense, I think Miami could potentially do it. But again, Minnesota, gap, 49ers, massive gap, and then the Dolphins.
All right, I'm going to throw one real quick one at you. We did not talk about Deshaun Watson. The vibe seems like they're not going to try and move him. Yes or no right now, is Deshaun on the Texans to start next year?
No, Jets,
yes.
Jets.